Welcome, everyone. Let's get right into this debate on global power shifts. It's like a chess match where every move counts. And here we're looking at how Trump's aggressive, unconventional war on BRICS got completely smashed by moves from Putin, China, and Iran.
Yeah, definitely. It's really something, isn't it? I mean, tapping NATO to wage a three-front war sounds bold. And then bam, the counterattack from, these rising powers just overturns the
Yep,
script. Exactly.
right. So the whole idea here is that Trump's strategy aimed at rallying traditional allies through NATO to, check the BRICS alliance. But it turns out the BRICS players, led by, Putin and then China and Iran, made a move that basically undercut that effort, almost as if they preemptively rewrote the playbook for multipolarity.
It really puts into perspective that we're no longer living in a unipolar world where American influence is uncontested. Instead, we're seeing this multipolar world narrative emerge.
Absolutely. Pepe Escobar, who has this reputation for uncompromising analysis, laid it out during his live stream. He explains how Trump's strategy of using NATO was meant to wage a three front war against BRICS, while simultaneously highlighting how the multipolar shift is, now being led by these powerful moves from Russia, China, and Iran.
Exactly. And it's interesting to note that beyond the military maneuvering, there's also a heavy economic side to this. The BRICS bloc isn't just about challenging military might over there, it's a bid for a renewed economic order too, right?
Exactly. It's like an economic pivot. Trump's plan was to maintain a sort of hegemony through traditional defense alliances. But then, with these moves from the BRICS countries, for example, the strategic interplay led by Putin's bold actions, the balance starts tilting towards a multipolar economic order, accompanied by alternative trade and monetary systems.
Right. And that brings up a key point. As alliances shift, so do economic policies and, financial influences. It's a double-edged sword. Power struggles exist both on the battlefield and in the boardroom.
Exactly. And what's fascinating is that after Pepe laid out these developments, he was joined by Ali Abunimah, who brought in updates on West Asia. That part of the discussion really connected the dots between these global power plays and the shifting influence in, the Middle East.
Yep, very insightful. I find it really compelling and a bit ironic that while the US was busy attempting this grand maneuver with NATO, the BRICS alliance was already reconfiguring global structures, making a case for a new kind of international order.
Absolutely, it's like trying to set up a trap, but then watching the prey take an unforeseen counter route. Trump's reliance on NATO might have expected a sort of immediate linear response, but the multipolar reality showed there were layers upon layers nesting underneath.
Yeah, and while some may argue that Trump's move was simply a power play to, reaffirm US dominance, the response from these other powers tells a completely different story, one that illustrates the erosion of that singular dominance.
Right, it's kind of like when you try to keep building a tower with fragile blocks. At some point, the whole structure shows its vulnerability. And in this case, the vulnerability was exploited by a coalition that isn't bound by traditional Western
Yeah,
doctrines.
I get that. Exactly. And now we have this scenario where the traditional US-led world order is being increasingly challenged by a system that champions a multipolar reality, one that offers more diverse pathways in political, military, and economic terms.
Absolutely. And think about it. If you have these powerful players like Russia, China, and Iran driving change, then it's not just about one simple confrontation. It's a profound system wide reordering where the idea of a dominant empire is being steadily questioned.
Right? And that makes you wonder about the sustainability of these alignments. I mean, can these diverse, sometimes internally divergent alliances actually hold together over the long term?
That's a great point. You see, although this smash against Trump's strategy signals a potent moment, there's always the risk of internal fractures. Every coalition has its own challenges, cultural gaps, divergent strategic interests, and the ever present tension of self interest versus common purpose.
Absolutely. So, in a way, While the BRICS players are currently outmaneuvering traditional strategies, we have to keep an eye on whether this multipolar alignment can maintain its momentum against inevitable internal and external pressures.
Right, it remains to be seen whether this is just a momentary tactical response or the start of a long term shift toward a genuinely multipolar order. It's like a snapshot of history in the making. With every geopolitical move, the future structure of power gets a little more refined.
Yeah, and it highlights that in modern geopolitics, every decision, whether it's an overt military strategy or a subtle economic maneuver, sends ripples across the global landscape.
Exactly. And as challenges and critiques arise, for instance, some say that the narrative of a decisive BRICS led future might be a bit, overhyped. It still forces us to reconsider the conventional wisdom of global hegemony.
Right, I can see that. On that note, I've been thinking, while this analysis shows Trump's strategy as a failure, might it be too simplistic to label it a total collapse just because these counter moves emerged? There has to be nuance in how we understand the unfolding events.
Absolutely, that's a fair critique. I mean, every geopolitical move has multiple layers. Trump's approach may have, in a sense, backfired, but it also painted a picture that clearly warned us about the limitations of relying solely on traditional alliances like NATO. It's a bit like a wake up call for rethinking global diplomacy.
Mm-hmm. And it's equally important to note that the very act of mobilizing NATO against BRICS might in itself have inspired these resilient power blocs to organize more cohesively. Sometimes, an attempted attack just galvanizes a defense.
Exactly. It's like when you try to stamp out a flame, you sometimes fuel a bigger fire. And here, the counteraction by Putin, China, and Iran didn't just neutralize the threat, it actually helped position them as, key architects of a new multipolar system.
Yep, that analogy fits. And then there's the West Asia aspect. Ali Abunima's input connects the dots by showing how regional dynamics in the Middle East also feed into this larger realignment. It's not just a power struggle in Europe or Asia, it's an intercontinental ripple effect.
Right. West Asia, with all its complexity, has been a battleground for influence for decades. When you see shifts there, like diminishing American influence or the emergence of alternative alliances, it reinforces the idea that we are no longer locked into one dominant narrative. It's like layers on layers of strategic readjustments.
Yeah, it really broadens the picture. And, even if Trump's moves might have been tactical in intent, they inadvertently accelerated this reorientation of global power structures.
Exactly. It's a dynamic interplay. And while some might say that this outcome is just another moment in the chaotic dance of international politics, it clearly signals that the old, unchallenged US empire is crumbling bit by bit in the face of these emerging forces.
Mm-hmm. And now the big question is, can these emerging multipolar alliances, like BRICS, maintain their cohesion long enough to reshape the global order, or will they fall back into the patterns of fragmentation that we see all too often?
That's the million-dollar question. And, well, as much as it seems that today's move is a decisive counter, the long-term success of such alliances depends on navigating internal contradictions and external pressures. It's complex, like trying to keep several spinning plates in sync.
Right, exactly. And isn't it fascinating how this particular episode, how Trump's war on BRICS was essentially neutralized, serves as a microcosm of wider geopolitical transitions? From economic negotiations to military posturing, every element is interconnected.
Absolutely. It's a vivid illustration of how global politics is no longer binary. It's a intricate web of competing interests and alliances. Even a move that appears to be a strategic masterstroke can quickly turn into a catalyst for a larger, systemic shift.
And while some might be skeptical about interpreting these maneuvers as harbingers of a new world order, it certainly makes one stop and ask, what's next? Are we heading towards an era where multiple power centers define international relations instead of one dominant superpower?
Exactly. It's a call for us and for policymakers to pay attention. Even if the immediate aftermath seems chaotic, these moves are reshaping the very framework of global leadership. And that's, something we really need to watch closely.
Sure does. And while some critics might argue that such narratives can sometimes oversimplify real-world complexities, it's undeniable that the current trends challenge the old assumptions about American hegemony and inspire, well, broader debates on how power is truly distributed in the world.
Right, it's like the more you peel back the layers, the more you see that the dynamics of power aren't static. Every strategic move, even those that seem catastrophic at first glance, sets the stage for a different, perhaps more inclusive global conversation.
Absolutely. And that's what makes these discussions so fascinating. They not only diagnose current events, but also spark debates about the future of international alliances. I mean, if the US's approach can be so effectively countered, doesn't it call into question the sustainability of its global policy even further?
Definitely, it urges us to rethink the very idea of power. Trump's strategy, in this context, served as both a reflection of old paradigms and a trigger for new ones. It's a vivid reminder that in geopolitics, every action sets off a chain reaction that inevitably redefines the status quo.
Well put. And as we wrap up, it's clear that whether one sees these moves as failures or necessary catalysts for change, they undeniably illustrate that the global order is on the move, continuously evolving with each bold and sometimes reckless maneuver.
Exactly. It's been a mind-bending ride exploring these pivots, and it convinces us that while today's events may seem like a setback for one strategy, they simultaneously pave the way for a more diverse and multipolar future.
Yep, indeed. So here's to keeping our eyes on the unfolding story and being open to these shifts, because ultimately, every geopolitical twist, even the controversial ones, is part of a larger, ever-changing narrative.
Absolutely. Thanks for this deep dive. It's been an insightful run through the complexities of global power plays, where strategy, economics, and regional influences all intertwine.
Exactly, for sure. And as we draw to a close on this discussion, it's clear that in geopolitics, no move is isolated. Every action reverberates across the global stage, challenging old orders and hinting at, well, new beginnings.
Right, it's been great unpacking all these layers with you. And it reminds us to always remain curious and critical, because sometimes what seems like a defeat can actually be the catalyst for a much larger transformation in the world order.
Couldn't agree more. Until our next session, let's keep exploring these fascinating turns in global politics. There's always more than meets the eye.
Absolutely. Stay tuned, stay curious, and remember, in geopolitics, the only constant is change. Thanks for joining this conversation.
Yep, thanks a lot. Catch you next time for another round of these thought-provoking discussions.